With that explanation, I call the meeting to order. This is the call board meeting Thursday, August 5th, and um, it is not necessary for us to have a roll call. We have quorum present. Next, I have a call to amend or adopt the agenda.
I move to amend the agenda to remove item 4, the executive session.
Second.
It has been properly motioned and second to remove item 4, executive session. You ready for the question? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Like sign. Thank you. So the agenda has been properly amended to remove item 4, executive session. That leaves one. So now that is the, so it, at this point, we've removed it. Now, do we have an adoption of the agenda? Do I need another motion to just adopt the amended agenda?
I move that we adopt the amended agenda.
Awesome. Do I have a second? Thank
Second.
you. Thank you, Dr. Hull and Mrs. Hull and Dr. Anderson. So we have a proper motion and second to adopt the amended agenda. Any question? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, like sign. Our motion carries, and we are now at item, not 5, we'll go to item number 1 on the agenda, which is the section 3, action item, approve the resolution for referendum to renew the special local option sales tax for educational purposes. With that action item, is there, I know that there was a spreadsheet put out on the website. Does anybody want to speak to this action item from the administration? For at least 10 minutes.
It's how we fund our capital. It is how we fund our capital improvement programs and projects, facility renovations, new facilities. Just as a side note, 60% of the sales tax generated by this this tax is actually paid for people that live outside of Clark County that come and visit Clark County, UGA students, UGA home games, things like that. This was shared with us from UGA on some studies they've been doing on the tax collections and where it comes from. So it's a great avenue to get somebody else to pay for the facility upgrades and maintenance items that we do. So, and again, we try to write the referendum such that it gives us the maximum flexibility to adjust and adapt based on our enrollment trends and things like that. We have a 5-year facility plan that we do with Georgia DOE, which identifies all of our mechanical maintenance issues, things like that, on a 15 to 20-year life cycle. So that kind of plugs into that. We also renew our computer devices for the students and for the staff. So that's on a 5 to 7 year program as well. So again, this resolution, we do this in order to, with a timetable to take it to Athens, Clark County for them to approve it and put it on the general election, or the election, which is in November, on November 2nd of this year. We won't begin collecting funds until July of 2022. That's where we sell bonds to try to jumpstart some of our programs. And so our tier 1 projects, such as Clark Middle, Cedar Shoals, and Gaines Elementary are kind of the first out of the chute that allow us to get started on that. Okay, that was 3 minutes. I don't know. I could probably tap dance or something for 7, but you probably wouldn't enjoy it. So
I'm good. No, seriously, thank you very much for that. And again, since we have a lot of new board members who've not gone through this experience, but you did say for 25 years, T-SPLOS has been funding all of our maintenance.
yes.
What are the specific things that get funded with T-SPLOS?
I mean, you just for in SPLOS 5, you can look back. We did the Hillsman Middle School. We renovated and upgraded BHL and Coyle. Oglethorpe got a brand new elementary school. So those were some of the big items. I think technology, we spent over $18 million in technology. We buy 5 to 7 buses a year to upgrade our fleet so that all of our buses have air conditioning and are, we're not, driving 20-plus-year-old buses that break down and things like that. It's allowed us to do Piedmont with the board office so that we can move out of here to expand the Career Academy and the programs that we're trying to develop here as well. So again, that's just some of the highlights. SPLOST 4, we had Whitehead Elementary. We renovated Whit Davis, HB Stroud, Barrow Elementary, new school there as well.
This is a new accounting rule, government accounting rule, that we use for software subscription, not the software. Starting, I'm not sure when that starts, but 23, 24. It's confined to capital expenditure, to redefine that capital.
Okay.
Try to kill some more time, so I mentioned mine. So,
Mike, would you use the mic, please? Because we always have trouble hearing you.
Sure. So once this passes on November 2nd, hopefully, well, let me go back to this. Once you approve this tonight or today, then I will get it to the elections board. I've already been talking to the election supervisor. She has a timeline. So she'll get that to her board. We'll get the call of the election published in August. It'll run in that paper 5 times before the election in November. Hoping it's approved in November. Then we'll have another round of paperwork for you to approve and for the Board of Elections to, quote, validate the bonds. It's just to certify by a judge that the election was proper and valid. And then we'll have the bond issue so that John can go ahead and get some of these projects started.
So let me make sure T-SPLOST is different from SPLOST.
Adams-Clarke County has asked us to call ours E-SPLOST, education SPLOST.
Okay.
E-SPLOST is transportation SPLOST, which is separate from the SPLOST, which is another.
Yeah, exactly. There's 3 optional sales taxes you can have in Georgia for the county, for the mayor and commission, that get split with the cities, which is just 2 here. Then the educational SPLOST for the school board and the transportation SPLOST. Clarke County has all 3. Most counties have the first 2, but not all have the transportation SPLOST.
So only Clarke County gets to benefit from the E-SPLOST. Is that correct?
Yes.
No other entity, no,
Correct.
it's purely for the school system. That's awesome. Okay. That's a good clarification. Anybody else have any questions or clarifying? Yes, thank you, Dr. Yeager.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you to remind us and the audience about the COC and how there is an oversight committee for how these funds are spent. Would you like to remind us about that?
Yeah, we have a monthly meeting with the Citizens Oversight Committee who we give an update for all of our projects. We talk about cash flow. We talk about expenditures. We talk about, issues that come up during construction, issues that come up during the community. We make sure that they're involved when we're doing our planning. Each project has its own local building committee, which consists of members from the school, the administrative, parents, students, and citizens from the community. So that way we're well represented and get a lot of input for our projects.
Thank you.
All right. And so I'd like to hear from Mr. Davis. You had your hand up?
Yes, thank you. Can these funds, I'm looking at C, where it says technology to be used. And it talks about our facilities, and it talks about computers and laptops, tablets, mobile devices for students and staff, servers, wiring, wireless antennas, and other technology upgrades. Is this something, if the county were to become an internet provider, is this something that we could use SPLOST to help hook up some of our families that are currently not hardwired?
I'm not sure what that entails. So the first thing is,
Right, right. No, no. Let's say, for instance, we have a road in which there are 7 homes. There are 9/10 of a mile down the road. They were not hardwired. AT&T says it's not cost effective to hardwire that street. Therefore, folks are they can use satellite, they can use hotspots, they could use other resources, but they can't be hardwired. If the county steps in, and again, I'm just this is all speculation, but this is a 5-year thing that we're taking out to the public. If the county says if this is cost prohibitive, but we feel like it's in the interest for every Clark County home to be hardwired, someone needs to, then the county would, let's say, theoretically, would step in and become a provider, a actual internet provider, and run cable down that street. To what degree could we support that by SPLOS, so that if there are 4 out of the 7 homes down that street, that those students in a situation where we go virtual again in the future could be hardwired and therefore effectively participate in our educational process.
Sorry. So the first thing, I've never heard of that happening, to be honest, whether the first part, a county or city doing it, much less a school board, because the internet provider, Windstream, Charter, whomever it is, owns the infrastructure and bills for the usage. So to put taxpayer funds towards that would be a gratuity. But that said, there are some grant programs, as a matter of fact, a pretty new one, for counties and cities to direct some federal funds in that manner. They're not putting their own money into it, but they're basically acting as a pass-through for some government grants that then the private providers like Charter and Windstream are using to do this infrastructure that wouldn't otherwise be economically feasible. Now, if or how the school district could at some point participate in that, I mean, I don't know. Those programs aren't there at this moment. Maybe they could be in the future.
Well, I mean, Chattanooga has their own, they are an internet provider. So go ahead. I'm sorry. So is Elbert County. So there are, and we're talking about the South. So other places in the country, I think it's more prevalent. But I guess the point is that to what degree can SPLOS, if this was going to be proposed by the county using, let's say, their SPLOS funds, to develop a countywide for the county to become a broadband provider along with Charter and AT&T. And they were directly going to go down areas that where our students live, that would otherwise not have access. I'm just saying, is it prohibited by SPLOS, or is this language broad enough to speak to where we may be in 3 or 4 years, and we say, you know what, we need to be a little bit more aggressive than simply giving students hotspots to take home with them. We need to step it up.
Well, I just think from a logistics standpoint, the school district doesn't need to be in the internet business and trying to maintain lines and infrastructure and things like that. If it's on our facility or on our campus, we can do that, and we do that. We actually have outside vendors' antennas that we lease space on our properties that they can put their antennas on. But us actually going out into the neighborhood and trying to run cables and things like that, I don't see it's not our property, it's not our facility. So again, we'd have to check the legality of it, but I think that would be very hard for us to do.
That's, okay.
So thank you for those questions about, again, the scope of this particular plan. It also sounds a lot to me like the things that I've been reading about and the meetings I've been participating in about infrastructure, which is a totally separate pipeline of money coming into the states, coming, like he said, pass through the federal thing. So there are lots of opportunities out there, but I would definitely, yeah, I know some counties that also provide services, and so they're in competition with the other providers. So I don't know that. I don't even know where we would begin to approach that question.
Okay, let me
To see where
just,
we come from that. But so your question was simply, is it a capital expenditure to provide residential services to our students in their homes?
I think it's not so much providing it as it is having it accessible. You know, it's kind of like we provide school buses. We don't require students to take those school buses, but we, you know, if we have students down a certain street, we will run a bus to pick them up. And that's what I'm talking about. We have pieces of the county now that literally don't have the roads. And so we have, you know, the internet roads.
Mhm.
And so
I live
therefore,
on one of those.
huh?
I live on one of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I think, and if you look at where your home is located, I mean, it's not a place that people would immediately assume it was. But that's the kind of problem I think our kids are having. And I still think that we've gone through a horrendous pandemic that has affected so much the education of our children. And I wish to gosh that I could say I'm sure it's a one-time deal, but I'm not so sure we won't be this year, the year after, the year after, the year after. And I just want, SPLOS is looking ahead. You know, we don't, when we pass SPLOS, we're looking on where we want to be 5 years from now, not where we are right now. Okay. Right now we got school opening up. We got all our kids coming in and so we've got a mask, people that wearing masks are being safe. We're going to do this thing. We're going to get caught up and everything's going to be fine. But we got to look 5 years down the road
So
on this SPLOS.
let me interrupt you, because did you make a presentation to us? Because I went to the SPLOS presentation. Did you put anything in that presentation about providing infrastructure or providing? So that's not a part of our recommendation tonight at all. Are you asking to amend the recommendation to include those things, or what are you asking here?
At the bare minimum, I want to make sure it's not excluded. Now, I think I heard
And the attorney
Mike,
has already ruled on
right,
that. He said
that is not, it would not
excluded.
be preclude. Now, I understand what John's saying about the practicality and all this, and there may be other laws involved.
Okay.
But just in terms of this language, I want us to have a blank slate 2 years from now if this discussion picks up again.
Say it again.
That project list, that is a tentative project list.
That's right.
It is subject to change. We are not representing to the public that this is exactly what we're going to do. The referendum, with its broad language, that's the legal document. So we have all the flexibility within that resolution language that's very broad. The project list is the current plan, subject to change.
Excellent, thank you. Ms. Gallagher, you're here now. We are at this point in our agenda discussing action item number 3, which is to approve the resolution for the referendum to renew the special purpose local option sales tax. Do you have any questions about that? We're in our question session now. We have a motion on the floor, I believe, and we have a second. We don't have a motion yet? Okay, so we're asked for a presentation first, and so that's what Mr. Gilbert is doing. He's telling us about the recommendation. Did you have any questions for him about that?
I'm trying to get in here so I can get to my questions,
Okay.
but I can send them in an email so that we're not here all night.
Oh, you're fine. Tonight is our vote, and so if we don't have any more questions, then, I'll simply call for the vote. So take your time and go ahead and find your question. Dr. Gannett is on her way. But-
Yeah, what we could do, actually, if there's no more discussion to be had, we could just take a recess until Dr. Gant gets here and then vote when she arrives.
I just don't want us to lose this opportunity to ask important
Right.
questions about it. So yes, if we're done with the questions, then yes.
I just had a quick clarification question. So what we're voting on today is just to put it on the ballot? Is that, okay.
Oh, and that reminds me of something else that I think you all know, but just remind you. Anytime that you are putting a question to your own voters as a referendum, we're not allowed to use school board resources, school district resources to promote that vote, to tell people how to vote. Now, if your friends that you talk to, you can certainly say, this is a great thing, please vote for it. You can, when you're asked questions, you can answer them. But we can't use staff resources to go put up billboards or pamphlets or things like that. Typically, we have a community, and I don't know, has that started this time?
Steering committee with the COC.
Okay.
Yeah, the COC has established a steering committee to where they actually chair that that effort to print up, ballots and flyers and put, the yard signs out, and then also talk to, other groups and things like that. So, but we just can't print them up ourselves or put them out. The staff can't do that. So we work through the COC and their steering committee. Yes, ma'am.
So would I be able to place on my personal Facebook page encouragement for voting for that, or is that a no-go? Okay. Okay. Thank you.
That triggered a thought for me. And so and thank you for having us talk about the COC, because I don't think enough of the community, from the people that, and the calls that I get, they don't really understand the COC and its role and what it does. We get the oversight piece, but we don't see the other pieces of it. And so where would we find that documentation for the COC and what established it and how it operates?
It's on the SPLOST website. So there's actually a link to the COC. We have all of our previous meeting minutes from the past couple of years that are posted on there. We send out meeting minutes every month, included as part of our package as well. And again, everyone's, welcome to attend. So.
Super.
That made a good point why that's really not part of the formal school district structure, because we're part of our resources, they couldn't promote SPLOST. They're really, to the extent that they're spending money for promotion, they're either donating it, fundraising it, whatever.
Right.
Awesome. Thank you. Do we have any additional questions?
I just have two very quick questions. So the first, if this referendum goes to vote and it's approved, it's not raising sales taxes, keeping the sales tax as it currently is, because East Plus is currently
Yes.
in
yes.
operation.
It's keeping it in place for the next 5
Okay.
years.
So it's not a tax hike, is what
It's a
I'm trying
continuation.
to throw out into the world. Okay, and then the second question, if this were not to be approved, how would we as a district fund all of these capital projects?
You wouldn't. Byron would have a very tough job because, our just our mechanical repair systems and things like that for the next 5 to 7 years, is well over, $50 to, $70 million. So if you look at that, you wouldn't be building new facilities. You'd be triaging, your worst case, and that's the challenge. You guys Clark County is very fortunate, is that you get all that SPLOST money. Some of the smaller counties that don't have the tax revenue that Clark County does, their facilities are in terrible shape, because it's, if you're relying on the money that you get from, BOE and everything, it doesn't cover all those expenses.
So one example, I guess, is the rebuild for Clark Middle that the local building committee decided that they wanted to do. Some of that money is coming from this next set of SPLOST funds, right?
Yes.
So without it, that rebuild would not happen
That,
for
yeah,
Clark Middle.
you would totally revamp your program to,
Yes.
with the money, funds that you had.
Okay, just wanted that clarity. Thank you.
Right.
No backup plan. Thank you.
And that's huge because our general fund budget will not do. Yeah, we'd be a whole different place. Yeah, that would be an interesting remake of the entire system. So, and that was part of my awakening too, coming onto the school board. I did not recognize the significance of the special local option sales tax and what a huge impact it has. And now we are absolutely dependent upon it to continue living as we currently do. And that's interesting. Yes, ma'am.
So the projects in here, that book that you gave us, are those the same projects? And
Yes, and well, the referendum's a lot broader in general. It pretty much lists from A to Z all of our facilities and property that we own, so that we have the flexibility to pivot and address needs that, as they arise.
okay, so in that book, there were X's by the level of priority. So those things, if this passed, those things would still go first.
Yes, if this gets approved in November, those tier 1 projects would go first.
But that's
And-
on our vote.
Right.
Is that not correct?
Well, I would bring to you, each project as we get ready to, hire the architect and also the contractor. I'd bring that to you, the actual construction
And
contract.
so it goes on our vote.
Yes.
We would still vote on anything that is spent because we still have that oversight responsibility regardless of the COC.
Okay, so there were a few things that were in that book. I was reading through it today, and I wish I would have brought it because I put red stars by the stuff that looked like we should have done it way before. Thank you. Yes, that we should have already done it. So there are some things in there that were kind of scary when I read through, like HVAC systems in kitchens, and thank you. And my internet doesn't work, so I can't pull up anything.
Yeah,
But
we work with plant services and nutrition
Mhm.
department to kind of prioritize. We look at schools and the number of work orders they're having, depending, on the systems and how they're functioning. And that's what kind of, leads us on our priority of what we're going to do. One of the things we'll be doing as part of the SPLOST 6 is the security upgrades to the schools that don't have digital cameras.
mhm.
So that'll be a kind of a district-wide project where we'll upgrade the schools that don't have the digital cameras to, that have the analog cameras up to digital.
Okay, and then bigger projects like the kitchen over here at the Career Academy, they're not going to get pushed off or anything. Or,
No, well, the right now we're doing ELC kitchen
Mhm.
expansion. Once that's complete, then we'll start doing the planning for the culinary lab. That will actually be out of SPLOST 5.
okay,
We're currently anticipating to have sufficient funds to do that one out of SPLOST 5.
Okay. I am so excited to welcome our president. Did that answer your last question? So we're in the process now of taking questions and of explanations of what the item 3, the action item for the SPLOST referendum is about. We have not yet called for the motion or second or the vote. We're just, again, having a presentation from Mr. Gilbreth and just making sure everybody's heart and minds are clear on what we're doing.
can't find it. I just want to make sure because it won't sit well with me if I go home and don't ask it. There were some things in here that were scary that we don't have in our schools or have not been fixed. And if we're gonna wait on SPLOST 6, I just feel like after knowing about it, now there's a heightened sense of urgency, at least for me. So why are we waiting?
I guess you'd have to give me a specific example, but like I said, primarily anything that we would deem an emergency, plant services would get on that right away. So we wouldn't be waiting for SPLOST 6 to deal with something that, is categorized as an emergency. If you have an air conditioning unit go out, that kind of thing,
Mhm.
we're not waiting until the vote in November potentially to fix it.
Right. Okay, so an example would be so Timothy Road HVAC unit replacement in the gym. Like, why are we having kids in a hot gym?
Well, again, that is, it's probably been serviced and operational. It's probably at the end of its life cycle. So that would be one of the things that we vote on. You know, if the SPLOST 6 doesn't get approved, then that would have to come out of the plant services, budget to get that fixed. But to my knowledge, and again, I'm not aware of any major systems like that are down that are not functioning as of right now. And I know with the 95-degree heat, we've had issues and we're doing service calls and all that stuff, but it's not, we don't have gymnasiums that they have, absolutely no air conditioning. So.
Okay, and then how long, like, when is this kind of information collected before, like, how long does the district sit on it before it goes into a document that goes before the board who votes on a budget that is in the future?
This is renewed every 5 years, but we look at it, probably quarterly. We get with the different departments and look at issues to make sure that our priorities are still in check and in line with what we need to do. So it's not like it just, somebody checks it one time and then it goes away for 5 years. It's a constant living document that is updated, maintained by plant services, by myself. We get with security on the security systems and things like that. So it's an ongoing weekly, monthly, review of those things.
Okay, so I got one more. So under Clark Central, it says fire alarm.
Right. That may have been, a short in the system or something. The schools actually got sheets where they listed items that they want to address. I believe I think the gymnasium may have had its own separate fire alarm system when we did the main renovation back a couple years back. There was a new system put in the 3-story structure, but the gymnasium system is its own standalone fire alarm system.
Okay, so how old is this information? That's what I was asking before.
It's probably been the last 6 months when it's been collected to be put into that document. But there's not, like right now, if you go out there, plant services, has a gentleman who is in charge of all the fire alarm systems. So we're not sitting here that has an alarm going off in a building right now. I'm sure that they've been looked at or addressed. So I'm not aware of anything right now.
Okay, it says still not functioning since renovations. So this is in a document that I'm looking at.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say that this has been addressed. Here's an update on what's happened. None of that. It says, here's some stuff that needs to go into SPLOST 6.
Right. And at that time, what we probably would end up doing would be upgrading the entire system throughout the campus. But, that particular standalone system has, I can check, but I'm sure it's been serviced and it's not beeping and in an alarm or not monitoring the building like it's supposed to.
So when does updated information get shared? So that my heart isn't beating fast.
Oh,
when
I
I
mean,
see stuff like
if it wasn't working, I guarantee you the principals would be calling and emailing Dexter or Marcia and letting them know, hey, we got a system that's not over here working. We need to get it looked at and fixed. As far as updating it, I'll get with Dexter and we can see, what would be the appropriate update where the plant services folks can give you guys a monthly update or quarterly update, things like that.
Okay, so that leads me to my final point. So if we get a book full of things that are already being addressed, that have already been addressed, it makes it really hard to trust that we need to go ahead and pass something where all of the issues in the book are currently being addressed.
Well, that's a snapshot of the planning that was done at a time period. Obviously, I can't put a book out and be constantly updating it. That's a snapshot of everything that had to be done at that time that was documented as potential issues.
Over the last 5 years.
Right. And more recently within the last year. So there was a facility assessment that was done several years ago that had a 20-year life cycle on it. So that's where we look at our major systems that just based on, the average life cycle of an air conditioning unit, it's going to last, 15 to 17 years. So you plug that in your schedule so that you know that you're going to have to replace it, at the end of its life cycle. For the immediate stuff like that, that's an ongoing, working thing that we do that helps us prioritize our projects. Like, Chief Sizemore says, hey, Clark Middle, we really need to upgrade the security system. Well, does it make sense for us to spend $250,000 on a camera system that we potentially would be ripping out in the next 9 months or a year. So.
Those are great questions. Thank you. It sparked a thought for me because we do have a policy that said, the board at one point was supposed to do an inspection of all of our facilities once a year. And so I know that we don't do that as a board, but there, I believe, is a policy or a program in place where this information is where it is done. And that is the information that gets fed into this plan too. It is, the snapshot really helps clarify it, saying that at this moment in time, this is what it looks like. And of course, it's going to change rapidly because things will change too. So I appreciate that.
I know with our KPIs, I think those are updated quarterly, and then you guys get a report on that. And that's something I can work with Mr. Fisher on to make sure from the plant services side, and whether it's nutrition, custodial, whatever, that you guys kind of get an update on those, items that, have popped up that have, because if it's kind of like the expenditures. If you got a list of every work order that came in to see, when it was fixed and how many, they can give you an update of how many they processed and what they've done. And then, anything life safety related things like that, we can certainly respond to those.
So great.
This list it's not terribly long, but these are like severely high priority things. And so if there was an update, I think that would have been a great attachment prior to this meeting.
If I may, acting chair, we had a meeting that was open to the board that I think went into greater detail. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, where we had really a lot of the projects that were there. There was an opportunity to discuss those particular projects at Whitehead. I know I think I was running behind, but it may be, so there has been an opportunity to be able to ask questions to, or at least to try to get caught up. It is a lot of information. And so it's very hard to sort of compartmentalize and understand. So I do understand that as well. I'm just wondering if, will you all do that again in the future, or if there is any way that the board might be able to have, access either to those documents, or maybe even just putting on our radar that although action would have been taken on this, it could be useful maybe to have that again. And I don't know, Mr. Pruitt and Ms. you may be able to answer, I don't know what the legal parameters are. I know you have to do it in a particular order.
Even though we do a 5-year plan for the SPLOST and for Georgia DOE, we update it annually. We're required through Georgia DOE to update our facility plan.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're speaking more directly to kind of work order things like a fire alarm system out.
Okay.
So that's something that we can work with, so Mr. Fisher and Plant Services and those folks to identify that, to make sure that, you guys can, rest at night that we don't have a fire alarm done. We wouldn't be allowed to open a school if we didn't have a functioning operational fire alarm system. Right. What that does is Plant Services says, hey, we've had issues with this. We need it replaced, in the future. So as far as your high priority items, first thing we look at is life safety. Then we look at ADA accessibility, and then major systems and components and things like that. So that's kind of life safety's first.
Yeah,
So
I'm only speaking to the safety stuff. The bigger projects, I know how to find people and ask them. The safety stuff is what's concerning me.
So I see Mr. Fisher and Mike.
Well, and like I said, there's one individual who all he does is life safety, fire alarm systems, fire extinguishers. Those are semi-annual, so twice a year those are checked and inspected, and that's all he does. So, and he lets me know if something's not working, it's a major issue. Then we address it and take care.
So
of it.
this sounds like a great conversation for our Fiscal Responsibilities Committee, because again, we're trying to reorganize ourselves to address that. So I please keep up with these questions so that, again, when we come away from that meeting, we know exactly where we're going.
And Ms.
Thank you,
Davis, if I could add, part of the conversation that we're having now is a part of our strategic plan.
Mhm.
So when we look at objective 5.3, it talks about efficient operational services, addressing district safety audit to ensure that all of our the classroom environments, the building environments are safe. And so our plan is to have updates of our strategic plan. So the conversation that we're having now is a part of that update.
Excellent. Thank you. Is that for, do we have any other questions before we call for the motion? Did you have any?
No, I'll just say, Ms. Davis, if with as it relates to the strategic plan, I know Ms. Palmer has also shared like a general calendar, and so those would definitely be opportunities as we look at that. You know, if there are things that the board, not necessarily an individual, but the board is in agreement that we, you know, that this might be a good time to have a report on some of those indicators, Mr. Gaskins, that fall under there, or at least like a report out, that would definitely be the time and, you know, an opportunity for us to share those thoughts.
Major expenditure. I certainly agree with that. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay. She can carry the vote. Absolutely. Thank you so very much, and thank you guys for your indulgence.
Thank you, Ms. Davis, so much for let me call on you to help me out. So if there are no more questions, it sounds like there weren't any more questions, Ms. Davis. Okay, all right. So the floor is open for a motion. Thank you, Dr. Yeager. Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hull made a motion. And can you be specific about that motion, Ms. Hull?
I move that we vote on the resolution for referendum to renew the special education local option sales tax for the educational purposes.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there
To approve the resolution.
okay.
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion by Ms. Hull, a second by Dr. Yeager. Thank you. Just for the record, any follow-up questions or concerns? All right. All in favor of approving the stated resolution, if you would raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All of those opposed, the same sign. Okay. And were there any abstaining? Okay, so that motion passes. Is it 5? Okay, so our executive session was removed. The floor is open for a motion for item 5.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Davis and Ms. Gallagher. I don't see any objections to that motion. We are adjourned for our call meeting at 5:19 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.